Wholeness. Here are a few notes from a recent talk that I did on the Leela, the game of life, a play of paradox, of Maya or illusion, as the biggest cosmic joke within the infinite levels and dimensions of the cosmos of eternity. Leela is a deep dive within the mother's cosmic womb or her boardroom, where we wear our different personal realities as roles or masks that we play, vibrating at different frequencies, showing up aspects of our multi-dimensional self or selves. Here are a few quotes. Everything is Maya and an illusion in the Leela game of life. But one thing is true. There is only the eternal now moment. And with every death, there is a rebirth. There is no separation. And so what is it all about? Everything's all about energy, of frequency and vibration, of consciousness emanating from your source as a language of light, simply weaving its tapestry into the big fabric of consciousness. Our state of being is more important than the circumstances around us. Change your state of being, and you can alter your circumstances. It is not the other way round. The Leela game allows you to see your life as an expression of the macrocosm within your microcosm, as the drama of all the cosmic forces, until eventually you reach liberation at square number 68, reaching cosmic consciousness, just like a water droplet merges with the deep ocean. Water droplets are part of the ocean, and when they realize there is no separation, they realize that they are part of the sacred causal ocean called life, the unity consciousness. In the game of Leela, we throw a karmic dice, and this shows us our level of evolutionary involution within the self, as the dice lands on a particular square. And so the game teaches us a lot about ourselves, and it does eventually teach us that there is unity in diversity, because everything comes down to the all is self. Pure consciousness is the mind at rest. The whole process of loving the self in wholeness and transforming the ego does take a while. But what is the rush? As we're free beings. Take your natural time to know thyself. What is the hurry in the eternal now moment? In ignorance, I am something. In inner standing, I am nothing. But in love, I am everything. And so the Leela game has many, many, many lessons within it. So many lessons to learn. The journey of liberation begins with needlessness as the empty fullness of total sovereignty as a self-realized being. And so all that man can ever know already exists as a potential within himself. More quotes. A palindrome simply blurs the lines and constraints of time. opening the door to the space of variance within infinity. This infinity is the Leela's boardroom, the mother's boardroom, as her great play of the game of life. The eventual aim is to surrender as you enter cosmic consciousness. You are as you imagine yourself to be. So why not use your imagination? The polarity of duality is simply our teacher. It teaches us what we do want and what we do not want in our lives. We are the fractalized aspects of one source, infinite consciousness. We have a lot of lessons to learn in the Leela game of life, especially in the lower chakras, in order to rise through the ladder of lights into the higher chakras. But time and time again, we keep returning to the smaller fractal aspects of ourselves as deeper and deeper lessons that we have to learn. A motto that is a good motto to keep as a mantra throughout your day is just for today I have enough. After all, you came here with nothing. You will leave here with nothing. What is there to lose anyway? You've had all the experiences along the way. The arrows on the board game of Leela can be our spiritual growth. So can the snakes if we look at them as gifts teaching us deep lessons about ourselves. Remember, it is not about your circumstances. It truly is about your state of being. Fasting is not just fasting from food or liquid. You can fast from not speaking or communicating. This is called Mohan Vrat, and it is practiced in the practice of Vipassana. In the game of Leela, it is important for the player to fully level up and play out all of the planes completely, below and above, to move into the higher chakras. In the lower chakras, envy, jealousy, anger, low density vibrations are felt, lowering the frequency and energy. Simply remembering we're all individually on this journey. There is no race. There is no competition. Spiritual ascension is simply a process that cannot be rushed, but simply having accountability to the self will help you raise your vibration as you take more and more responsibility. Karma has many ways of striking you, but it is the greatest teacher. In the game of Leela, the player simply realizes that the world is his oyster and there are infinite number of possibilities out there. And so he can start to use his imagination just like a child to create. The Nagas were the great masters of great wisdom. They actually took Vedic culture onto the Mayans. Life is always about keeping balance and wholeness. Mercy begins with the self first. Before one can start to empathize or sympathize with others, he must first have mercy for the self, so that he can fill his own cup before pouring onto others. And mercy is the basis for forgiveness. And forgiveness always starts with the self first. In the Leela of consciousness, all the divisions are illusionary, and they are simply separated compartments which are parts of yourself showing up as your egoic structures. Freedom from everything depends on nothing, and so it cannot be lost. All of this is the game's cosmic joke. All of this is your game, it's my game, it's our Leela. Everything happens within yourself first. What you see in yourself, you see in everybody else. What the heart feels, the tongue feels and speaks. How do you want to travel in your journey towards self-realization? Always ask yourself, is this necessary? Is it true? Do I need to speak it? Before you open your mouth. Always turn your story into a story of your highest joy, and then you will see the circumstances changing because you've changed your state of being. Beyond the mirror of duality is the infinite realm of all possibilities, because infinity just exists as existence. The self shines just like the sun through the heart portal. Life is a roller coaster. We simply learn the lessons through the peaks and the troughs of riding through the waves of life in this great causal ocean of the Leela. The game of Leela simply ends when you lose all the smaller egoic aspects of yourself and you merge fully with cosmic consciousness, only to start all over again into infinite realms. Awakening with awareness means you're simply being playful in your joy. Joy carries a higher vibrational frequency than love. Karma is an energetic vibration within the cycles of birth and death. Instead of becoming afraid of adverse situations in your life, you are facing in your life things that can lower your frequency vibration. Learn that these are lessons, and they're simply inviting you to meet and greet and totally embody them, be with them. After all, you are a powerful soul, and light and love is your true nature. So allow that light to meet and greet whatever is coming up for you in your life, and sit with it in stillness and silence. Charity is the beginning of a selfless service. Charity always begins at home, and it helps to break the ego's attachment or the ego's bondage structure. Dharma is deeply ingrained within our seed code, and its form varies from one individual situation to the next. Awakened conscious actions is Dharma. Learning to act consciously from one moment to the next with divine principles of nature is the law of Dharma within the cosmos. The laws of Dharma are right conduct with firmness, self-forgiveness, self-control, cleanliness with purity in all aspects of self, restraint of sensory and the main organs, intellect and truth. Dharma can also be service to self as well as service to others. Selfless service is merely a way of being, as opposed to charity, which can be infrequent selfless service. Where were we before all of creation? We were in the undifferentiated fabric of the divine ether, lying within the womb space of the Divine Mother, who is simply the transcendental matrix of creation. I am whole, and you are whole. And together, we've all come from the whole as holistic beings who will return to the whole. So allow the gnosis to pour out of you, through you, with any reflection you meet in the day, because we're all sparks of one Creator Source. And ask yourself, how righteous are you being in your daily life? By doing and being in harmony with self, with the right conduct, consciously, with thyself. Follow your excitement from one moment to another. Raising your vibration is simply an act of following your joy from moment to moment to moment. A person who listens to his own guidance, following the laws of nature with faith, is called Sudharma, Dharma to self, whereas a person with blind faith follows Adharma, false faith. And so delusion is having blind faith in something. Adharma does not work with nature and existence. It is against it. Animals and plants beautifully follow the laws of nature. As they simply awaken at sunrise, they do not overeat, and they rest by sunset. You do not need to forgive others before you have not forgiven yourself first. Forgiveness always starts with the self. And that is in body, mind, and spirit. And so your energetic vibration will be reflected in forgiving the other mirror image of yourself. Our heart is connected to the earth, hence the color of the heart chakra is green, representing Mother Nature. We are the authors of our story, and so imagination is the key to manifestation. Change your thoughts to change your emotions, to change the feelings within the heart, to change your reality. Your heart is your psychic center. By learning our lessons, we learn to raise our vibrations. We do not move onto higher vibrations until we've fully learned a lesson. And only then will our spirit evolve further. Conditional love is a low vibrational frequency because it is dependent. Unconditional love is a high vibrational frequency because it is totally independent. It just is. Being able to be an observer in any situation from a space of neutrality rather than any polarized imperfections raises your vibration and allows you to flow in life. Transparency is clarity, and transparency has no resistance. It just is. Creator is the creation, and creation is the creator. Life is eternal. If there is no freedom from the dimension of the ego, the idea of separation arises when the mind itself creates the duality of separation, of polarity. When the illusion of separation ends, the conflict of the opposite also comes to an end, and you achieve unity consciousness. There is no rush in playing the game of Leela, because throughout the game we're simply learning lessons of self, of who we are because of the ultimate aim, and that is to know thyself. True awareness is simply surrendering of the mind. Our breath consciousness allows our consciousness into all cells of self. Prana is important to maintain the body in its balance, service to self and service to others. Our reality is simply a sum total of all of our thoughts. So if you want to raise your consciousness, raise the frequency of the thoughts that you are thinking, as this will improve your reality. We only perceive our world from the level of the energetic frequency that we are vibrating at, which is our consciousness. What you see is a result of your consciousness. Real gnosis and knowledge comes from an inner standing without judgment, without attachment. And so the journey goes further and further inwards. Keeping the balance between our inner world and our outer world as an observer of our reality allows us not to fall prey to the square of ignorance, which is the game of Leela. Where wisdom exists, equal and opposite ignorance can also exist, because balancing forces always come into play. That which is seen within also appears on the outside without. The mind is the faculty of desire or repulsion. Intellect is the faculty of determining the truth of things. The ego is the faculty which identifies itself with the body. Desire is the faculty that seeks pleasure. Our soul brought this beginningless superimposition upon itself by its actions. This state of experience is the dream state. This subtle body and our body vehicle is the only means for the activities of the real self, which is ever aware. Good or bad eyesight is due to the state of the eyes, deafness to the ears, and so on and so forth. none of these affect the soul, who is the eternal knower. The ego is the actor who plays the game of Leela. Pleasure, suffering and pain pertain to the ego, and they are not characteristic of the ever blissful soul of Sat, Chit, Ananda. Everything is empty and meaningless until you give it a meaning. How does consciousness get to know itself throughout life? By playing this drama, by playing this Leela game of life. The purpose of life is to come out of duality and go beyond the mirror, beyond the metaphysical mirror of duality, to enter unity consciousness of all there is. How much of an ego attachment can one burn through penance in order to achieve self-mastery? Questions that came up in the Leela. The left nostril, related to the moon, should operate during the daytime when the sun is out, to balance out the predominance energies of the sun. And likewise, the right nostril, affiliated to the sun, the Pingala, should be more in balance at nighttime when the moon is out, to balance the predominance energies of the sun. In the Leela game, landing on both the squares 48 and 49 helps to balance the player's internal solar and lunar energies. How much can the fire externally and internally burn your ego in order for you to flow into self-mastery? In the Leela game, square number 50, the player realizes the difference between the circle, the I am that as an object, ego consciousness, and the I am as the dot inside the circle, which is the Bindu point, the 0 point, the Turiya point, where he has simply lost all identification with his egoic structures, simply through self-surrender. Our planet Earth is the mother of the Leela, and so the more the player of the game experiences the Earth, the deeper he realizes the balance that is required within himself. And what you give out is what you receive. Water is simply a binding material of existence. The game of Leela starts when true wisdom kicks in. Moving and running water never gets stale. Keep moving like water, my friend, said Bruce Lee. And so when we enter the fluidity of self, we have the ability to confront the self as self-mastery. Knowledge is obtained by dissolving the illusion of any identifications of form. Square number 68 in the board game of Leela is the plane of Shiva, of cosmic consciousness. And it is here that the player actually sees the game as the same game enacted by others in different intensities and states. And this is where he realizes that all is self, and that there is no separation, and that he or she can become completely emphatic and one with all. One dip in the causal ocean of Sat, truth, Chit, consciousness, and Ananda, bliss, leads to non-duality, as the cosmic consciousness of unity consciousness. So any violence to self is the different chakra centers. In the first chakra, the ahimsa, or violence to self, was usually over money, currency, attachment, belongings. A very ego-based me, I cultural attitude. In the second chakra, the ahimsa, or violence towards self, is always around indulging in lustful sex, pleasure, drugs, rock and roll. In the third chakra, the ahimsa towards self is the thirst for power, again money, ego, outward, external looking. In the fourth chakra, the violence towards the self was that men can even kill in order to settle a score. These are when you have religious wars coming into play. In the fifth chakra, the violence towards the self is fueled by an agnostic saying, I don't believe in higher consciousness, it's just another ego attachment. And in the sixth chakra, the violence towards self is observed by the formation of many cults and groups and religious organizations that become so established in their I-ness that their violence and ahimsa can be based on holy wars or crusades simply in the name of God. And this, again, is another egoic attachment. Anger is ego's greatest ally. Old patterns, attachments, identifications, and belief structures all have an ego death at the next level up, on the 7th level of the game. As a player can simply birth into any form of liberation. Ego carries compulsive patterns that orbit our personality, not the illness of having a personality. Simply integrating the ego within us is important within the journey. The highest light must always be balanced by the integration of the highest darkness. And that is when you know that all is self, and you start to become unconditional. You start to embrace the light with the dark. There is a difference between a desire that holds an attachment and an intention that doesn't, as a pure intent. Om, as A-U-M, is the highest frequency vibration sound, and it simply opens a person up to his own essence of self. Tamaguna, or tamas, is a deep sleeping state. One good way of keeping your awareness in check is to keep asking yourself, am I awake? Am I aware? Even in deep states of meditation, ask yourself this, because people often go to sleep in meditations. The whole person of meditation is to be awake and to be aware. The game is over once liberation is attained, and by attaining states of samadhi, one has attained liberation. Neglecting our own darkness, our own shadow selves, and negative karmas means that the longest game in the snake Leela game is simply waiting for you to gobble you up. So just be radically authentic with yourself. That is the only way to thyself. And it is through stillness that we can learn to really, really master the self, to know the self, to be the self. So just be. After all, we are human beings, not human doings. As we rise in consciousness, we arrive at deeper and deeper gnosis of the self. And in this journey, finding of the self is never a linear pathway. It is circular. And you always come back to aspects of yourself that you simply haven't dealt with. And so the game of Leela allows you to do this. We live in a reversed mirror reality as physical beings, but as metaphysical spiritual beings, we must look beyond this mirror. With every change that we make with the self, we start to affect the morphogenetic field that is around us. At the 8th level of the game, the player has gained a deeper perspective, as everything carries a deeper gnosis or a concept experientially. Shiva is the ultimate cosmic consciousness. In the highest consciousness, there are three primary dimensions: a material form of the body, action and interaction as evolution, and the purpose of the phenomenon as a noumenon. And so as you start to focus more in the I am, in your own meditations, you arrive at a place where you start to perceive the I am everywhere, because there is no separation between you and the other. This is unity consciousness. The Bindu point is located nowhere, yet it is everywhere. It is there that is dwelling you, within you. And so the separation between you and anyone else dissipates. This is the basis of unconditional love. With each breath, the player of the game starts to feel an involution of evolution and a dissolution of creation within the space of the I am. And as you start to love yourself more and more in body, mind and spirit, you start to own yourself more and more in embodiment. And you also start to see that reflected in everyone. When the supreme experience supervenes, everyone's service is revealed as one's own service. Call it a bird, an insect, an animal or a man. Call it by any name you please. One simply serves one's own self in every one of them. All is self. Anandamaya Kosha can be reached from the lower planes if you are following the right wisdom or reach the point of correct wisdom. Anandamaya bliss is simply something that is felt in the heart. This is highly experiential. It can't just be a thought or something that you've read in a book. We have the Trinity of Brahma's cave as creation. We have preservation within the heart. And we have destruction as Shiva. As Shiva consciousness enters the deep, dark womb, this is the alchemy that only Shiva holds, because he can change the magnetic to the electric, as his divine consort is Kali. The evolution of individual consciousness is completed at square number 67. The essence of cosmic good is truth. As we know, the karmic dice of the game of Leela can fall according to the vibrational frequency of the player at that particular time. Know that all paths lead to one source, but the highest reality is always truth and Satya. When the player reaches the point of cosmic consciousness, the ring that he has used to play the game simply goes back onto his finger, because he starts all over again in the greater journey of Leela, deeper and deeper within the cosmic womb. When we enter this life, we have total amnesia from all previous lifetimes. But we have one thing. We have a choice in each moment. As the nature of the great cosmic play is to discover all the fractal combinations of different karmic energies of self, with which either the player of the game can now re-enter the game and start playing it again, or he can simply rest in Om, sweet Om. All that exists has three qualities: the active quality of Rajas, the lazy quality of Tamas, and the neutral quality of Sattva, as Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic qualities. We have three states that we go through: waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Dreams are a process of purification, as they cannot be bound by physicality density, and the player is in his natural astral body. All attachments are the cause of our suffering. After all, getting light is the only way to reduce the possessions that possess us. No particular attribute can stay active by itself. The main essence of the game of Leela is simply to endlessly play it, and to remember and reclaim your own gems that are already within in a remembrance, so that you can help the world around you, as everything is connected. There is no separation. And as we decrease the illusion of separation, we can start to embrace the unity between every living being. The ultimate aim is to align our heartbeat with that of the infinite cosmic consciousness. Wholeness and balanced vibrations.